him. And his word is something you can invest in. He said the earth takes shape like clay to the seal when it's pressed in. Heaven stretched out like a tent to rest in. The sky is the limit.
No, literally could the firmament hit you. The sky the limit.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom in Context. I'm Sean. I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. And we're going to have a wonderful guest on tonight to talk about the shape of the earth. Sphere, flat, something in between, banana shaped, donut, who knows. So we're going to talk about it. We'll talk about probably some scriptures, some science. I think it's going to be a great conversation. Be sure to stick around. Real quick, though, I want to say thank you to everyone that's in the live chat tonight. See a lot of familiar names, but especially I want to say thank you to all the mods. Appreciate you guys being here, keeping things cool. As always, try not to ban people if they get out of hand. Just mute them. Maybe they'll change their attitude, come around later, and be civil next time. So, and as to all the new members, thank you guys so much for your memberships. Now, remember, there's 3 tiers on our YouTube membership. If you've joined at the fundamentalist level, be sure to email me at kingdomincontext@gmail.com so I can put you on the early access email list for the contextual study guide that we're building. And I'll just send you everything that's completed so far in email format. You get all the PDFs ahead of time. Otherwise, if you're at the family tier or higher on our Patreon, you already have access to those under the collections tab. So I want to thank everyone for supporting us in that way. And hopefully you're getting something out of it because you're getting a resource you can discuss at your Bible studies and with family and friends. And yeah, so it's been such a journey putting that together. It's been amazing. All right, guys. So I'll tell you what, real quick, Lighthouse is coming. It truly is. I know I've been talking about it for quite some time, but we've already got Wes Blaze, Ken Heidelberg bringing those words. We've got Drew Winters with Green Pond Creative. We've got Sanctified Supply Company. We've got a whole bunch of people already loading stuff up and getting it ready so that when it goes live to the public, you're going to see some fun stuff on there. Underhill Apothecary is on there. They got some great products as well. So we're excited. We're just kind of getting that filled out, and it is coming, guys. So be excited about that. It's going to be a brand new free platform for you to use. Video social marketplace, first ever. It's going to be amazing. Also, just want to let you know that we are still producing episode 2 of Days of Noah. The comic is already completed. It's even got our protective packaging for shipping. That will be available as soon as Lighthouse is out, and you can go to the Days of Noah store on Lighthouse and get that, as well as we'll be premiering episode 1 on Lighthouse. So we're super excited about our Days of Noah project. Thank you so much for everyone that's been supporting us through that. And you guys are amazing. Hopefully we're creating some good Christian family-friendly content for people to learn and be entertained. So without further ado, I want to bring on my guest tonight. This is our brother, Will Duffy.
Howdy.
Hey, welcome. How you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. So yeah, I'm glad to have you on. We got kind of delayed a little bit, but mostly my fault. Had some things come up, but I'm happy we were able to make this a reality. And you are currently a pastor at Agape Kingdom Fellowship in the Wheat Ridge area, in Denver area. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I've been pastoring a couple of years there. Took over the church after the pastor passed away, unfortunately, and it's been fun. It was a bit of a fork in the road and kind of where I thought I was headed in life, and kind of changed directions. But it's been great.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, I used to be a financial planner, and then I started to look at other things. I enjoyed it, but I just didn't feel like that's what the Father wanted me doing long term. So here I am on YouTube talking about the Bible, stepping on toes everywhere I go, and trying to create bridges of peace. But for whatever reason, it seems like they're getting burned as fast as I can create them. So it's been an interesting experiment to actually talk about the Bible for what it says and see how people interpret it differently, And so what type of denomination, if any, is Agape Kingdom?
So we're non-denominational.
Okay.
It's kind of hard when you have a lot of stances that you take theologically to kind of find a denomination where you fit nicely in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, my father pastored the church and was more like a Pentecostal Assemblies of God leaning. And then later he stopped pastoring. He went on to do missions work, which he still does with orphanages in different countries. And then I ended up going to a Southern Baptist church for like 4 years, which is very different, as you can imagine. And then after that, in my mid-20s, I went to a Methodist church for 8 years. And so I just had a kind of a wide mix. At one point, I went to a Presbyterian church, just a wide mix, and realizing the average person that goes to the fellowships, so many of them are so uninformed about what the Bible says. They're really just there for fellowship. And I know that's not 100% for every congregation, but in my experiences at massive churches and different denominations, that was my experience. And I was that nerdy guy that was making appointments with pastors like yourself in between Sundays in their office hours, trying to ask questions about the Bible and getting some different responses, which I thought was wild. Right? You ask the same question to different pastors, you get different responses, different interpretations, and so yeah. But tonight, you and I were talking about basically the shape of creation. I would like to say the shape of the earth, but I think it encompasses more than that. More than likely, we'll talk about the heavens because we serve the creator of heaven and earth, right? So like the heavens were created in Genesis 1:1 as well. And so you and I both, I'm guessing you were born in America?
Yes.
Okay, so we're both born in the United States. I can't speak for you, but I grew up in normal public schooling. Went to college in a normal, state college, nothing fancy. But I love science. I mean, I remember my senior year doing a research report, our big research report that we had to do at the end of our senior year. I was doing that on black holes and event horizons. So I was interested in all the things that pertain to physics and science and astronomy, and because I had become a Christian when I was 17, and I thought it would help me understand my Creator better. So that's why I thought, I need to learn how, like, the underlying mechanics and how he made everything. But around 2015, I looked up the definition of the word firmament, and my life changed. So you wanted to come on tonight and kind of provide some rebuttals / evidence / arguments for why you don't think, why you do believe the Earth we live on is spherical and a heliocentric model. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. By the way, I don't want to forget something. You just mentioned you liked science growing up. I noticed you got an invitation to participate in that thing called the final experiment. Are you following that at all?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. I don't know what it was. I looked at it and I didn't know what it was, so I put it right out of my mind.
Yeah, it's super intriguing. They haven't announced exactly what it is, but there's another video they're releasing this Sunday. But you're one of the official invitees, so congratulations on that.
I don't know what that means. So, okay. I guess I should say thank you, but I don't know. Are you a part of that?
I do not know who's behind
Okay.
it, so
Okay.
I'm watching and excited to see what happens.
I don't even know what it's about, to be honest.
Yeah, the premiere on YouTube for Sunday says they're going to be revealing the location of the experiment.
Is it an experiment pertaining to,
Yeah.
biblical cosmology or something?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an experiment for flat versus globe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I won't be there. I'm sorry to disappoint whoever invited me, but thank you for shouting me out.
For sure.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, I got involved in this space a couple years ago.
okay.
A Facebook friend of mine, she posted about flat Earth, and it caught my attention. At the time, I didn't think flat Earth was a thing,
It's
and
laughable.
and so yeah, I was like, okay, she must be she must be joking, right? But then she kept posting, so I finally engaged with her to figure out what was going on, and I found out she was serious. She was dead serious, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize this was a thing. So I asked her some questions from somebody who doesn't really know much. Like, I didn't know anything at the time about the size of the Earth or, the speed of the Earth's spin and orbital mechanics and all that stuff. And I still don't, but, I threw out some things and she had good answers for them. And she started sending me articles and links and YouTube videos. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to take a look at this. And I decided, I was like, all right, I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to go deep in the rabbit hole here to see what's going on. And I spent quite a bit of time in this space. My wife was not happy with me spending so much time on it, but it was intriguing to me. I'm more intrigued on kind of like the philosophy behind how people think and their beliefs and why they hold to certain things. But I'm also big on evidence, and I like to be right. I think we probably all like to be right. And so I was like, I want to make sure I'm right on this issue. So after spending a lot of time on the issue, I did come out of it stronger in my spherical beliefs, and hopefully I can defend that a bit here tonight.
So the person that you're interacting with that was like sending you articles and everything, was that someone at your church?
She was not at our church, but I did know her through a church.
Okay.
So she attended way back in the past. This is probably going back 20 years. She attended the same church that my now wife attended when she was a child. So it was she was a family friend.
Okay. So there was you took her seriously to a degree because you've known her for a while, and
Oh yeah.
you knew she was a stable person.
Oh yeah, definitely. And she had good arguments.
Logical arguments. It's almost like I've thought in my head, because I rarely get to have these conversations that we're about to have right now. So I've thought in my head in the past, I was like, you know what, if I ever have one of these conversations, what I should probably do so that the person I'm speaking to knows that I'm not just a crackpot, I should probably like give them some baselines, right? Like, which is why I try to share with you, as a normal person, I didn't grow up on an island somewhere. I wasn't, indoctrinated in some weird cult beliefs. Like, as a normal person, went to church, became a believer when I was 17, been studying the Bible voraciously ever since, and have a wide mix of experiences in different Christian communities and under different denominations, as well as I'm not dumb. I'm not going to say I'm a savant or anything, but I'm not dumb, right? So like I hold down jobs, careers. I have multiple businesses I'm a part of. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to help a lot of people with their finances in retirement, right? And put together, strategies for them, help them get out of problems and do stuff that was good for them, right? And that took cognitive thought, right? I could put two and two together. Some people say I have good deduction skills. I've always been interested in like mysteries and, figuring out the solution or the problem or the mystery. And so this is where to let you know, for everything we're about to say, I'm a normal guy. I'm a normal guy with average to slightly maybe above average intelligence. I think the last time I took a IQ test, how IQ tests can be skewed. I think it was like a 138 or something like that, right? So I'm not a genius. I don't claim to be a 270 or nothing, but I love chess. I love strategy games. I love solving puzzles. It's so funny. When I first met my wife, I sent her Paleo Hebrew. I sent her my phone number encrypted in Paleo Hebrew. I said, "Do you like puzzles? If you can solve this, it'll be fun."
I love it.
She had no clue how to solve it, right? So I ended up just having to tell her I was trying to ask her out. But so basically, I always joke myself. I say I'm kind of like a word nerd, and so as a result of that, I came across the idea that the firmament encloses us. It seems to be the definition of the word. So have you studied that aspect of this conversation?
I have not studied the firmament or the Hebrew word behind firmament that much, but I will tell you that there is one position on the firmament that was put forth by my previous pastor, who I mentioned, who's now deceased. And it's very interesting. He's put a lot more thought into it than I have. He's a lot more scientifically minded than I am. He was more scientifically minded, and I do like his position. And if I remember right, I think the Hebrew word is rakia. Is that right?
That's right.
And so what he points out in Genesis is that there's a switch right in the beginning where it talks about the firmament, and then it talks about the firmament of the heavens. And it gives a qualifier for something that was just talked about. And so he argues that the reason there's a qualifier is because it's actually talking about something different. And so I believe his position is that the first rakia is actually referring to the crust of the earth. And so there was water above the crust and water below the crust. If I had to take a position on something that I haven't studied extensively, that's the position I would say I hold right now.
Okay. Well, I personally have never seen that type of definition for that word to be used in that way. But I think the passage, if he's using the KJV, I think that's where he's going in verses 19 and 20, talks about the birds fly in the firmament of the heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And actually,
So the
specifically, it'll say
firmament of the
the opening.
heavens, he would say, is different than the crust of the earth, which is why it switches to just saying firmament to firmament of the heavens.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you were it was brought to your attention that there's a growing group of believers that think that we live under an firmament enclosed flat circle of earth. Now, obviously, it's not like those silly pictures you've seen where there's like a disk of land with water falling off of it, and then Mars is on one side and Jupiter's on the other side. It's not like that, right? So, in my understanding, just so that we're not, so that we're clearly communicating, is that I actually hold. Well, I think Irenaeus in the first century summed up the description really, really well of the firmament creation. And he describes it in his book, Demonstration of Apostolic Preaching. He describes it as this world is encompassed by 7 heavens, and he shapes them out as if they're upside down bowls. And the greatest and largest firmaments would be where the Most High lives, at the top. Literally why he's called the Most High, right? All pun intended. And then multiple layers down. Then on day 2, he created the last 7th firmament that encloses the earth. And so this is where he actually gives an analogy, and this is just, I think, his personal analogy. I'm not saying this is inspired, but I think his personal analogy was that it's, if you took the menorah candlestick from the tabernacle and turned it upside down, that would be the pattern of the heavens. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. For me, if I love evidence, as might come through here in our discussion tonight. But if there was evidence of a firmament, that would do a lot for me. That would hold a lot of weight for me.
So, what evidence would you like to see to know that we don't live on a approximately 25,000 mile circumference ball in a heliocentric model?
Well, for the firmament specifically, a picture, a video, or an eyewitness testimony of somebody who was, at it, that would be big for me.
Like Jim Carrey touching it.
Yeah.
And what was that movie called? It's back in like
Truman Show.
Yeah, the Truman Show. So this, I'm sure you've heard have you heard the arguments against why that's very, very difficult to go get a picture or actually touch the firmament?
Well, I have. I don't know how good they are.
Okay.
Because there's not just edges. If there's a firmament, there wouldn't just be edges, but it would be above you and me right now.
It would.
And so I struggle with the private companies now going to space, which I know you guys don't believe in. And so
I believe they're private companies. I just think that just like NASA became a quote unquote private company after being controlled by the military for 3 decades. So now they refer to NASA as a private company, but it's still part of the space agency. And someone like Elon Musk, the last time I checked, he was getting $4 billion a year in subsidies from the U.S. government.
Wow.
So how private is that?
Yeah. There's not just Elon Musk though, right? I lose track of all the different companies, but there's
Jeff
more.
Bezos with Blue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a few others, right?
Branson, maybe.
Yeah, Charles Branson. Well, now he actually hasn't done a rocket. I don't think. He just had that ship he's trying to fly at high altitude. But I don't think he's ever actually accomplished it. Or maybe he did put up a rocket recently. Either way, I think it's interesting that the Army controls the airspace above certain altitude, and that you have to be a very specific person in a small group of selected people in order to go up on a trip that supposedly goes into outer space.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because let's say, are you familiar with the atmosphere and what, like nitrogen, argon, helium, all that stuff, and how our atmosphere is made? Okay.
No.
So our atmosphere, according to observable science, is that it's 79% nitrogen. And then the remaining 21% is made up of hydrogen, oxygen, argon, neon, and other noble gases. Except for oxygen, all of those other gases ignore gravity and float up. So if you had a container of nitrogen in a lab, you pulled the top off, the nitrogen floats up immediately. It ignores the downward pull that we call gravity. Okay. So what's keeping our atmosphere on the earth?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was in my discussion, which I don't know if you caught with Austin Whitsitt.
I didn't.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Austin Whitsitt on Jaron Campanella's channel, Jaronism.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to them that I hear arguments from both sides and I don't know who's right. So I hear this argument, right, which is the gas pressure without a container. And then I hear on the globe side, people making the argument that you can't have the gradients that we find in the atmosphere in a closed system where it would all equalize. So I don't have any idea how to respond to either of those, to be honest with you.
Okay. Did Austin explain the electromagnetic gradient?
He did not, no.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's something that if you go into certain studies of physics, I have by the way, I'm on another channel with a buddy. We've done 2 full seasons of a show for Biblical Cosmology.
Oh, wow.
So we have 50 episodes? One of the episodes I try to show from studies from the University of Oklahoma, as well as other studies from scholars that are they're physicists that deal with electromagnetism, as well as the air gradients and how it's affected by electromagnetism. And so they'll readily admit to you that there is a pressure differential change, a barometric pressure caused by not gravity, but electromagnetism. So, and it gets stronger the higher you go up. So it's kind of, and again, this, you have to dig for some of these nuggets, because that would be opposite of what we're told, that gravity's stronger, closer towards the mass, because the Newtonian concept of gravity is mass attracts mass. So if we're on the earth closest to the actual mass of the earth, gravity should be strongest there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think gravity, I think weight has a lot to do with gravity as well. So gases don't weigh too much.
Right, but that brings us to the question of, so if that's the case, what is keeping all the gases from not just equalizing the pressure to where there's no gases in the exosphere or the thermosphere? Way beyond the supposed ISS's location in the exosphere. There's no pressure up there because there's no gases. They're all dispersed in the heliocentric model. So what's keeping them all on the earth concentrated, finite, according to scientists, 18 quintillion parts per million? That's the amount of air pressure we have to exist in. So what's keeping those all clustered together, and not, since we literally can test, other than oxygen, all the other gases, you take the container off and they just go up. So they're not just chilling and hanging out for a while for you to breathe and then slowly decide to go up. So I actually have a video where I tried to show that electromagnetism does directly correlate with air, specifically the hardest example of it, which would be heated air, because heated air rises, right? But there's the Palace of Discovery in France. They did an experiment with the ions in heated air, and they have these 2 big metal paddles that are hooked up to electricity that are putting off 20,000 volts of electricity between them, right? So imagine these handles on 2 metal plates, and then anything in between those 2 metal plates is subjected to 20,000 volts of electricity, right? And so then they put a candle in between those metal plates and blew out the candle so that the heated air would rise, and they put the metal plates on them, and it drew the heated air to the metal plates instead of just rising up, because there's ions inside the heated air that are attracted to the electromagnetism. So just proving that all air, even the most difficult, the heated air, can be affected by electromagnetism, even at ground level, even inside of a building that has air pressure. So something to consider. Something to maybe look into.
Yeah, I'll say one other thing, which is that there's a huge problem today, and I don't think this problem has anything to do with you or myself, but the problem is a lot of people, especially people that I would call higher up in their field, have an attitude of, we know everything there is to know, we figured everything out. And I think that's definitely false. So I think if you were to talk to a scientist or something and present this dilemma to them of how we have gas pressure without a container, they might kind of freak out and be afraid to just be like, we don't know yet. We haven't figured that out yet. And I think sometimes that's a good answer. So for example, I am a huge fan of whales, right? Most people don't know this about me because I don't really talk about it, but I'm a bit obsessed with whales. I'm so obsessed that I've tried for 4 years to swim with a whale in the wild. And I'm talking about like a humpback whale or a blue whale. So very, very big whales.
Okay.
And it's fascinating, but we don't know a lot about whales.
Yeah.
You
Are
know,
you just trying to like pull a Jonah, or just like what's the
yes, I'm hoping to not pull a Jonah. But anyway, we're actually just this year, just in the past year, starting to understand how they can communicate underwater.
okay?
We didn't know for, millennia how they reproduced. And so this is like the biggest creature that's ever lived on the planet Earth, the blue whale. And we're like, we don't understand it. So I'm totally fine with us not knowing things right now and continuing to try to figure it out. It's all good.
Well, I do. We have heard that, right, from science, where they'll say, well, we've learned new information, it changes old conclusions, new hypotheses.
Mhm.
And so they do lend themselves the freedom to change their mind. And they'll say, well, this is science. We can change over time. But the problem is there are entire systems of education. There's entire systems of tax dollars going towards the current conclusions.
Sure.
So what happens when they say, you know what, we can't actually go to the moon? I think they were wrong back in the day. And they
Mm.
just anticipate an entire generation to be dead and won't make a stink about it because all the people that supposedly witnessed it are all dead.
Mm.
So there's an issue here as far as credibility, as far as theft, actual
Mhm.
theft.
Sure.
Because right now I think it's $22 billion a year that NASA receives in funding. And if there's a firmament, they're telling us an entire different origin of life story based on a different model of creation.
Mm.
And they get funded to propagate that information to you and I
Mm.
and to our children. And then
Mhm.
we have to come in and say, well, let's look at Genesis 1. I know what you were told in school. I know you saw these pictures of Saturn and Uranus and the Oort belt with all the asteroids that we've never been able to observe, but they claim is there. But let me tell you about what God said he made. So have you been able to like reconcile what the claims of the heliocentric model are with like the biblical description?
Yeah, real quick, sorry. A couple of people in the comments took issue with me saying that the blue whale is the biggest creature to ever be on the planet. Earnest and Ethereal Creations. The blue whale is bigger than any dinosaur as well. So I think what I said was definitely accurate.
I think they may be thinking of Leviathan and Job, right?
How do we know how big that creature was?
I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, I don't have any serious issues that I'm trying to reconcile versus the Earth being a sphere and anything that I read biblically.
Okay. So the definition of the firmament in the Rakia is an extended surface that's beat out like metal,
Mhm,
arched,
mhm,
visible
mhm,
arch of the sky.
mhm.
I mean, that's the actual
Well,
lexicon
yeah,
definition.
yeah. The issue I would have there was the sky piece. So everything you said about, beating something out, flattening it out, and then having a curve to it, all of that would work with the crust of the Earth.
But it's not talking about the land, which was still absorbed with water and then dried out because the water receded. It's talking about the actual day two was the firmament.
Yeah. Well, if I recall, there was water, and then this firmament was created, which separated the waters from the waters. And so I believe that the Earth started out as a ball of water, and then the crust was added, and there was water above the crust and water
Oh,
below the crust.
okay. I see what you're thinking there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then how do you handle Genesis 7:11? The
What's that
floodgates,
say?
the floodgates of the firmaments opened up and the waters poured down in during the flood.
Yeah.
So
So I
it
think
draws a
that.
distinction because it says the springs of the deep also flood,
Mhm,
and the floodgates of the heaven poured down rain in.
mhm. Yeah. So I believe that that was water from underneath the crust coming up, and it was rain coming down.
Okay. 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 So then you're saying that all references to the firmament in Scripture, because it's over 500 times, you're saying all references to the firmament are speaking about the crust, the land of the earth.
No,
Not the land, but the crust,
when
which
it's
is a deep version of the land.
yeah, when it specifically says firmament of the heavens, I believe that's referring to the expanse of the sky. But I think the firmament of day 2, before it starts to say firmament of the heavens, is the crust.
Okay, but so in Genesis 1:6-8, when he talks about separating the waters above from the waters below with the firmament, and then in
Yes.
verse 8 it says, "And he called the firmament heaven."
hmm
Okay.
hmm
So now we have a name for the firmament that's used throughout the rest of the Bible.
Well, I don't know. That's I have not looked at this for a while.
Okay.
Job 26:10, I believe, refers to the pillars of heaven.
Yeah.
And so I think referring to the earth, especially the pre-fallen earth, as heaven would be fine.
But contextually and definitionally, the word heaven throughout the rest of the scriptures is always up, and it is the abode of the Most High, Deuteronomy 10:14. It is
Yeah,
where Yeshua ascended into heaven, Hebrews 4:15.
I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
Because there's also heaven and heavens.
Sure. Aranos and the stereoma, or in the Greek, or in the plural, be the shomayim, which basically means a covering of water in the Hebrew. And it
Mm,
is a plural word because
mhm,
in day 1, 6 other firmaments were created. And on day 2, the last 7th firmament that encloses us was created.
mm.
So like in Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 1-3, talks about the man who had a vision, goes to paradise in the third heaven. He didn't know
Yeah.
if he was in the body or out of the body, but he
What
references a
about
location.
what about the term kingdom of heaven?
Oh yeah, absolutely. New Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven. It doesn't come up from the crust. It comes down out of heaven.
I think we could probably find some references here right now where kingdom of heaven is referring to on the earth.
Yeah, that the goal is the kingdom come. Your will be done. Your kingdom come. The kingdom of heaven, the gospel of kingdom, is the Father's house comes down to the earth.
Hmm.
Do
I'm just
maybe
wondering if
maybe we
there's
disagree
another.
on that concept. I don't know. How would you define Christ's
So
message of the
here
gospel
you
of the
go.
kingdom?
Here you go. Matthew 11:12. It's the first one I could find in the New Testament. And
Okay.
from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. I think that would be a term where heaven is being applied to the earth.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because you're talking about converts. So you're using that in the context of those who are getting to the kingdom of heaven, right?
Mhm.
So like in Matthew 5:8, when Christ says the pure in heart will see God. Where will you see God?
Well, what what do you mean by see?
Well, everyone he's speaking to was already looking at Christ, so he's not talking about
Mm.
himself,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, I'm not. I'm definitely
where
not
where would we see God if the pure in heart will see God?
in heaven.
Okay. So when he said in John 14, I go to prepare a place for you. If it were not so, when I've told you, my father's house are many mansions,
Mhm.
and I'll come back and receive you to me. Is it the Father's house we see in the fullness of eschatology coming down out of heaven in Revelation 21?
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you that heaven does refer to something up. My
Mhm.
personal opinion is that heaven exists outside of the universe, actually. I'm just saying there are times in the Bible where the word heaven is referring to earth. Like,
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sorry if I didn't make that
okay,
clear. I
okay.
agree with you because I understand the context of them gaining converts who then are
Mm.
considered children of the kingdom.
Well,
This is
even like the parables, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field.
yeah,
It's talking about sowing seed in the field.
it is. Yeah, it is. Um, okay. Um, are you saying there are no references to a kingdom of heaven that comes down out of heaven?
No, no, not at all.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just saying I don't think we can say the word heaven biblically can never mean the earth.
Well, the
That's all.
kingdom of heaven becomes a phrase that references a different idea. If we're looking at the definition of a word, aranos in the Greek, shomayim in the Hebrew, it always references something that is a part of the heavens and the earth, the creator of the heaven and the earth. So the heaven's always above the earth. Just like it says in Jeremiah 33, as high as the heaven is above the earth, so his love for us is he'll never forsake Israel. I'm misquoting slightly, but so it gives us directional location that the heaven is always above the earth. So
Well,
I would say
I'm disagreeing that the word heaven always has to mean something above the earth.
okay, what verse would you build that thought process off of?
Well, I guess the verse I just said.
Of Matthew 11, just that the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, it was the first one I found searching my Bible on my phone.
Okay. So we're in agreement that some aspects of Scripture, depends on the context, is that you're speaking about those who come into the family of God, which we would colloquially call the kingdom of heaven. And then other aspects, depending on the context, speak specifically about the kingdom of heaven being something that comes down out of heaven, like Revelation 21, 1-3 directly says. So then we have a city whose builder and architect is God that Abraham looked for, Hebrews 11, 10-14, waiting to come down. John sees the vision of its actual fulfillment coming down out of heaven. That's referenced as the kingdom of heaven. Now, it has many names, by the way. You probably know this. Like, it's referenced as, the New Jerusalem. It's referenced as married, Beulah. It's referenced as the city of the righteous. It's, different places in Isaiah and different parts of the prophets. It's referenced as Zion often in Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah. So this is the eschatological fulfillment of the Father literally visiting and tabernacling on the earth, like he promises in Ezekiel 37. So that, I guess, that leads into the question, because I used to think that too, Will. I used to think that heaven was like outside of our solar system somewhere and we couldn't actually see it or get to it, because I believe the heliocentric model was reality, even though I can never test that, right? I can never find the evidence for that. I have to trust other people are showing me true evidence for that model. So therefore, and their testimony is not the testimony handed down through the prophets from the Creator. So I have a choice I started having to weigh out in my heart. So then if that description of a heaven beyond, I jokingly, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory or mocking way, because I joke about myself. Okay. I called myself believing in space Jesus.
Okay.
Because I was like, well, he must be past, Sigma Arctura. He must be out in some deep space part of the created universe that I can't see. We can't see with telescopes. And that one day the kingdom of God, the house of the Father, and the Son inside of it as well, our eternal inheritance, as Revelation 21:7 says, is going to come back to the earth from space. It's got to, right? Unless we're believing in a dimensional portal like Thanos with the space ring, and you can just open up a dimensional portal and suddenly, or it's like the Transformers movie, in 2012 and Transformers 3, where their Cybertron planet started coming through a portal into the atmosphere of Earth. You know what I mean? So like, unless we're believing in something like that, the practical nature of it is that this kingdom of heaven, this New Jerusalem, has to travel through space and come to the atmosphere of the earth and enter Earth's atmosphere. And so I just don't see any of that stuff described in the scriptures.
I think one of the issues is this. Dean Odell, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
So I was listening to a Dean Odell presentation once. Again, I tried to listen to as much as I possibly could and as many people as I could.
It's a long learning process. This is a big topic. Yeah.
He said that the firmament is made of crystalline glass. When I heard him say that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a note of this, and I'm never going to forget that he said that. And I haven't had a chance to meet him, but if I ever met him in person, I would say, hey, Dean, how do you know what the firmament is made of? How do you know it's crystalline glass? I think one of the issues that anybody can be guilty of is talking about something that we've never seen or touched or experienced as if we know everything that there is about it. And so when we have something in the Bible that we don't have evidence for other than what it says in the Bible, we have to be careful, right? So like, for example, someone mentioned, Leviathan as an example, right? no one's ever seen a Leviathan. And so we have this term in the Bible, and it's like, okay, we don't know exactly what this is. So we have to make sure we try to fully understand what it's talking about, what the word means, and then also just be super careful as to how we talk about it if we really don't know that much about it.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does. That's why we, at least us here, we always try to point people back to the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we try to be as faithful as possible to look up the definitions of the words, see how they're used in context, and be faithful to that, right? Because otherwise we feel like you're going
For
to
sure.
find yourself in the weeds and find yourself inserting your own eisegesis and creating a new denomination. And we have too many already, right? So like,
Right.
we're trying to be balanced about this. And for me, this was a big deal because if I can't take the definitions of a word seriously
Mm-hmm.
in the context of its use of application,
Mm-hmm.
then I struggle to trust the text.
Mm. Well, okay, this would be a good thing to talk about. My opinion here is probably not going to be too popular with you and your audience, but it's okay.
And real quick, before we move on, I can probably guess where Pastor Odell got that idea
Okay.
about the crystalline firmament. I think it's from the Talmud. One of the rabbis back in the day talked about the firmament being, maybe even in Josephus's writings, about the firmament being the span of 3 finger widths and being made of a crystalline substance.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I have studied Greek a little bit. I never made it past beginning Greek, but I did take it seriously, and I've never studied Hebrew. I want to take Hebrew, but I have 5 kids, and so I think the only way I'm going to have time for that is once I'm an empty nester, which is going to be a while. But in my studying of the original languages, I've learned some interesting things, which is that there's words we still don't fully know and understand. And I'm going to give you a real interesting one, which is the word baptism, right? You'd think if there was a word in the Bible that we definitely understand, it would be something as simple as baptism, but we don't. We actually don't. There was a guy, and I'm going to forget his name, but he wrote a 4-book series on what the actual meaning is of baptizo, the Greek word that we translate as baptize. And his opinion is very fascinating because it goes against any type of a Greek dictionary that we would have. The reason the English word is baptism is because we don't know exactly what it means. It's called a transliteration. So it's actually not even a translated word. We created the word to sound like the Greek word because it's still something that's being studied. So just kind of...
Does the application of the use of the word in the text help us get a definition for it?
Not necessarily.
When they directly told people to be baptized and then they dipped them in water?
Well, it's interesting. There is a baptism in the Bible, which I believe, this is terrible. I wish I had my Bible memorized. There's a baptism in the Bible, which I think might be in 1 Corinthians, that talks about the Israelites being baptized as they crossed the Red Sea.
Right.
And when we read the story in the book of the Exodus, we find that the ground was dry, the water was walls next to them, and that they made it through without getting wet at all.
That's right, because the wind blew on the land so that they weren't walking on mud even.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
So anyway, no, again, there are times where context we can figure out something, but if you want to talk about major issues and debates and disagreements, talk about baptism. Like, it's one of the most divisive issues in the church today. And I think that that's part of the reason is we don't quite understand exactly what it means.
Well, is it divisive because the Catholics came along and said you have to be baptized in order to be saved?
That's probably a good part of it. But I do know people that, like, just recently, I visited Israel and my family, my wife, my children, none of them are baptized. And so when I mentioned that when we were in Israel, when my wife and I were there, everybody freaked out and they were like, well, you got to get baptized in the Jordan while we're here. And we did not do that. And it was interesting because we got to hear different points of view. And one of the issues that came up in these conversations was whether you baptize in the name of the Lord Jesus or whether you baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that was like a huge thing of contention between them. So even something as simple as that, it's fascinating that it creates so many issues.
It is sad because I would lovingly want to share for anyone making those arguments. Just if we just look up the definition of the word name, we would realize that the name of Jesus is the same as the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's the same concept. It's the
Right.
authority by which you expect salvation and by which you get baptized. So
Mhm.
it's not like, if you don't enunciate the word Jesus out of your mouth, that you don't get the effect of it. So it's interesting. Now, I would suggest that they did baptisms all the way back in the Old Testament. It's literally just called the mikvah.
Mhm.
It was the
Absolutely.
process of cleansing yourself because you were showing that you had a repentant heart and you're ready to go to the temple to present your offering to the priests.
Mhm.
So this is why John the Baptist and Yeshua's disciples would be baptizing people who were repenting.
Yep.
So that if you knew the law, then the logical part of the next step, which is not recorded in the Gospels, is then they take their offering to the priest at the temple because now they're serving Yahweh. So they would go do a vow offering. Similarly, like we see in Acts 21, where the disciples asked Paul to take the Greeks with them to the offering, to do a vow offering on their behalf because they just gotten saved.
It's funny. I see the strong opinions even in the comments. So Clayton just said it means immersion. And that's another debate, right? Do you sprinkle or do you immerse? So by the way, one of your commenters just said something, and I want to bring this up because this is a common theme that I don't understand. It's kind of like maybe like the one big thing that I don't understand among flat earthers
Okay.
is I have seen, so this is anecdotal, but I see consistently flat earthers are trying to connect everybody with the Masons. And so this commenter here, Whale Oil Beef Hooked is his name. He said, I wonder if Will's interests align with the 2016 Agape ATP Corporation Mason symbols evident. What is the obsession with connecting people that are not flat earth with Masons?
It's I can't speak for all the people that are
Okay.
watching right now. I don't know every single person in the live chat, but as far as the Masons themselves, do you remember? This is actually kind of a deep cut reference that we covered in our Investigate Babylon series, and you have to look in the Septuagint in Deuteronomy. So Deuteronomy chapter 23 in the Septuagint, it has an extra phrase in there that the Masoretic doesn't have, and it talks about those who are God hates or the prostitutes, the rebellious, and I think he says the initiates. And so there is a later on past Deuteronomy into Isaiah, Jeremiah, he's chastising Israel, and he's talking about them making covenants with death. I'm paraphrasing a bunch of concepts. Okay, so I'm not quoting. I'm talking about the general reproof from the Almighty to the Israelites about how they were in rebellion. So before I get into this, the next couple sentences, I guess I should just quickly address your question. I don't think that they're calling you a Freemason. I don't think that that's the implication there. I think a lot of people do obsess with symbols, and it leads them off into rabbit trails.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
yeah, because you may have just went onto a logo creation site to create a logo for your church. I get
That's
it.
exactly what we did.
That's exactly what you did. You saw one that looked symmetrical and cool, and you picked it. I've
Yep.
done the same thing with businesses in the past. No big deal. But Yahweh has a consistent pattern in the Old Testament where he's chastising the rebellious of Israel for doing certain rituals to worship Baal and Molech that were called initiates.
Mm.
And the people, they would leave covenant with Yahweh and they would go do these initiation rituals to worship Baal, as we see all this horrific stuff being expressed in Ezekiel chapter 8 and 9. And in other times, he refers to those people as leaping over the threshold, which is a specific concept that you see in the Masonic Lodge.
Mm.
So a lot of people
Interesting.
don't know the deep history of the Masonic Lodge. It's not a modern American thing. It's what we see today in most towns. It's a modern version. It's a modern representation of an ancient belief and an ancient initiation ritualistic rites. This is literally why they're called the rite, like the Scottish rite, or the York rite. It's the idea that they are groups of people that have held long-standing traditions that trace all the way back to Egypt and Babylon, that go all the way back to Canaanite Baal worship, about how they engaged in becoming an initiate in their belief system. And one of their things is symbols. That's how they communicate, because it's considered it's considered the occult. I mean, literally the word means hidden, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why they have little symbols they do. They have, they've always had this. And so this is where I think a lot of people in the modern day say if you disagree with the Bible but claim to be a Christian, then I don't agree with this. But unfortunately, some people will accuse others of being a Mason or a part of a secret society as a plant to bring deception and disrupt truth. Does that make any sense? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Trying to
By
be
the way-
charitable because I don't think you're like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know the people that are making these accusations or if they're. I'm just trying to give a well-rounded base.
I appreciate that. By the way, someone in the comments asked me, how do you have curved water? That's an argument that I've heard a lot that I've never really had a chance to respond to. What would you think of talking about that?
Yeah, we can talk about whatever this topic you'd like.
Okay, great. So, and again, hopefully, obviously this guy's not going to be able to respond. So hopefully you feel comfortable doing that. I've never seen level water ever.
You've seen wavy water.
I've seen all kinds of things. So my water bottle here that I'm drinking out of, I forget what it's called because this goes back to grade school science, but I think it might be called meniscus, where water goes up along the edges. So this water in my water bottle is not flat. It goes up on the edges. When I go to lakes, rivers, and oceans, it's moving, so it's not flat. I believe in tides. I know tides exist because I lived in Puerto Rico for 3 years on the ocean. So I understand high tide and low tide. I've literally never seen flat water.
Okay, so you're using the word flat in a very strict and literal sense.
I said level first.
Okay. So you're telling me you've never been to a lake and seen a still lake. And you can see edge to edge and you see that it's not bending or curving in any way.
I don't know if I've ever seen a perfectly still lake, but let's assume for the argument here that it is, that there's no wind whatsoever. How would you or me or anybody else measure that lake to see if it's level?
They've done this, by the way, with lasers.
Shooting
over lakes that are as far as 14 miles long.
But they're not measuring the water.
Their level, or excuse me, the laser is like 6 inches off the top of the water.
Yes, correct. So it's not measuring the water though. I've seen those. The lasers are on land.
So the lasers on each side of the lake, both 6 inches off the top of the water, shoot and receive a laser across the top of the water without being interfered with by tides or any curvature.
Perfect. Let's use that example. Okay. How do you know that the water is 6 inches below the laser in the center of the lake?
Are you saying that there is an inverted curve in the water?
No, I'm saying so we have a bunch of issues here, right? Number one, I don't see flat earthers usually state when they do these lake laser levels how much curve should be there in the center, right? So let's say,
well, they actually, I would suggest looking up these experiments. They do. They tell you the calculations.
I've actually looked into them. Bob Nodell, before he passed away, was the one that I thought did the most scientific laser experiments. And he didn't do what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is let's say the water in the center of the lake was 5 inches below the laser, and it was 6 inches below the laser at the edges of the lake. That would be a curve. And that was never discussed.
Okay, but the point of the laser is that it shoots in a straight line.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. Lasers do shoot in a straight line, but they also, the light also dissipates, and that isn't accounted for either. That's the problem that Jaron Campanella had in the Beyond the Curve documentary. He was using very expensive lasers, but when the light got to where he wanted it to be, it was like this big, and it started this big. And so that's not accounted for either.
Sure. That was what, 2017, 2016?
Yeah.
I know Jaron. I got his phone number.
Okay, great.
Spoken with him. I know Austin. I know Bob Nodell. I know all those guys. And they will let you know that the final edits, they were lied to by Netflix, the final edits. They were not given access to the final edits. And everything they were promised got skewed in the final edit to make it seem like they're a bunch of retards.
Wow.
So that's I mean, I would say since then you have incredible experiments that have been done by surveyors and by people that are engineers and have actually taken high-powered lasers with no dispersion that shoot extremely high concentrated, high-powered lasers across the top of the surface of a lake, well beyond what curvature should allow for that lake to have interrupted that line of sight.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a different question of whether or not the water is level, right? The question
Okay,
of
wait a minute. That was the beginning of the topic, though, was that you
Well,
talked about.
I think
Sorry.
what you're trying to say is that where they see the laser, they are below the curve, and so they shouldn't be able to see the light. I think that's what you're saying. That's
No, I'm
different.
saying there's no curve. That's why the
I-
laser can continue.
I know you are. I know you are. But what I'm saying is that those experiments have nothing to do with the water itself. I'm saying I've never seen a flat earther show me level water ever.
Okay, and that's why I said it seems as if you're using the word level in the most strictest of ways,
Sure.
which ignores.
If we want to talk about light, I would have a different argument, which is refraction.
So do you believe that construction engineers who use an actual level with a water bubble in the middle to make sure that things are level, do you think that that's level?
Definitely. And you can't use that on water. You can't put a level on a lake. Doesn't work.
Okay. So do you think you could put a level onto a laser to see if that laser is shooting in a straight level line?
Sure.
Okay. And then if you put that laser above the surface of water, what would happen?
It'll just be above the surface of the water.
Okay.
That's it. It won't tell you that the water is not curved unless you can take measurements along the entire thing to show the difference between the laser and the water.
How many measurements and how often across a 10-mile lake would you like?
Well, we'd need a measurement in the middle, and we'd need a measurement at each end, and I'd be happy with that. But I've never seen that done by a flat earther.
Okay. Well, it's difficult to talk about experiments that either you're unfamiliar with or that you've never seen done. So it's difficult it just becomes a he said, she said at that point. So
yeah.
I don't want to I don't want it to become contentious.
Oh, it's all good. I hopefully you and your audience are impressed though that I knew the name Bob Nodell. I know he did these experiments. I've read his numbers. I've watched the videos, and I'm just telling you that they didn't do what I'm saying, which would be needed if we're doing the water. Now, if we want to talk about things that should be hidden behind a curve, I can talk about that as well.
Yeah, we can talk about Pikes Peak that I can see north of Fort Collins.
I love it.
You know I shouldn't be able to see that, right?
I do not know that. No.
Yeah, if you did the actual 8 inches per mile squared calculation for the curvature, I should not be able to see 90% of Pikes Peak from Wellington north of Fort Collins. I mean, we're talking over 90 miles.
Well, so let's talk about 8 inches per mile squared real quick.
Okay.
Number one, and again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not.
You know, that's the heliocentric measurement. That's not something that people question this made up. That's literally the scientific heliocentric measurement. Is they claim if you took the ball and you tried to find a consistent curvature using math, you would use 8 inches per mile squared.
Okay, so here's what I'll say to that. I have researched this a bit. I'm still a novice. I've researched this a bit. I will say this, the 8 inches per mile squared. Well, let me ask you this. Do you understand the math of 8 inches per mile squared?
In what way? I can calculate it, but what do you mean by understand it?
Like, could you explain it to me?
Do you not understand it? You said you've researched it a bit. And I'm saying that the idea is that after 3 miles, you should have about 6 feet of drop in curvature, meaning that you'll have about 6 feet of earth between you and 3 miles further with that calculation. So a 6-foot person standing on the shoreline should not be able to be seen by a boat 3 miles out in the water.
So I think that's wrong. I think
it's not my calculation.
Well, I think you have the calculation wrong. Okay.
You're going to have to talk to all the scientists to propagate mainstream academic astronomy, heliocentrism, and all the physicists that this is the calculation they hold to when they say
so let me
the FE community is off their rocker and they don't know anything because it's and they'll say This is the curvature calculation. You can literally look it up online.
The curvature calculation, there's two issues here. The first one is the curvature calculation is at the curve. It's not above the curve. And so if you have someone who's 6 feet tall standing above the curve, that completely changes the numbers, like wildly significantly. If we're talking about 8 inches per mile, think about a 6-foot man. How many times does 8 inches go into 6 feet?
How far can you see as a 6-foot man? How far should you be able to see before things disappear over the curve?
Okay, I'm going to answer your question, but this is where other variables have to come into play. So number one, observer height has to come into play, which completely changes the 8 inches per mile squared.
We cover that variable, 6-foot person.
Completely. Number two is refraction.
Crystal clear day, not a drop of humidity.
Okay, so refraction, I can prove to you that flat earthers also must appeal to the same refraction that I am, and it matters.
So then it washes out. Zero sum.
I'm not saying
it hurts
zero.
you, it benefits us, and vice versa. So we're talking crystal clear, zero humidity.
Even with that, you still
January
have refraction.
1st.
You still have refraction because of the atmosphere. And I'm gonna.
But if you're going to put it in the equation, you need to have a variable for it, but you don't. You're just throwing the term in there without an actual number.
Okay, you're right. I don't have a number.
Okay.
But let me tell you this. Are you familiar with the flat Earth argument about Canigou Mountain being able to be seen too far?
I am, but real quick though, let's just stick with the very, very simplistic concept of the 6-foot observer in a crystal clear day with no humidity staring over a body of water. How far away before he is hidden by the curvature, before he cannot see a boat?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you. At least.
But hold on. This is super important because Austin and Jaron surprised. It's fine that they surprised me, but when they brought up the Canigou Mountain, I had never heard of it before, so I couldn't respond. But I've looked into it now, and the thing that I missed, which is massive, Sean, it's massive, is the pictures of Canigou Mountain that are being taken from, I don't know how far away. Maybe it's 9 miles or something. I don't know. The sun setting behind it is massive, massive, Sean. Okay. And so I'm going to push back on you on this, and I think you're going to have to appeal to refraction.
I wasn't talking about that.
No, that's fine.
I don't have it to look at. I don't.
Here's my question for you. Why, and I'm going to make it general. I'm not going to make it about Canigou. Why is it that the sun is massive when it's setting, meaning when it gets to the horizon?
Well, there's more air it's pushing through. There's more air it's pushing through. It's air density. And it brings a magnification effect. We see the same thing in the valley I live in here in southern Wyoming. I have mountains all around us. And when I come over a certain pass, the mountains on the opposite side of the valley look massive.
Awesome.
On certain days with a certain amount of humidity in the air. Other days, they look super small, and it's a really weird effect. The sun does this every day, where unless you have a solar filter or you have low humidity, it'll push through, especially if it's over a body of water. All that moisture coming off the water, it's going to have a magnification effect.
Yep.
Sometimes referred to as refraction.
Okay, so the magnification effect is going to affect what you can see. Because if something is smaller and it's magnified, now I'm not saying I fully understand this, but I just know that light does interesting things. And what's fascinating is we all can see and we all admit that light does even weirder things at the horizon. The moon looks bigger at the horizon. The sun looks bigger at the horizon. And so I'm going to suggest to you that if something gets magnified near the horizon, you're going to be able to see it further away than just a simple mathematic formula.
Okay.
And,
if it's not at the horizon and both of the observer points are above the horizon, what then?
Well, how far above the horizon? I mean, we're tiny compared to this Earth, right?
Well, I'll find a picture for you real quick. 1 second.
Great. And by the way, just for anybody that wants to look up this Canigou Mountain deal, what you can see with the sun behind it is the tip of Canigou Mountain, which actually makes perfect sense if there's a sphere. If the Earth is flat, you should be able to see the base of the mountain and the top. So Sean, in your example, you should be able to see the base of Pikes Peak and not just the top. And you
I
probably
don't see the top. I said 90% of it. So clearly, because Denver's in the way, and there's a level of
Sure.
smog. There's all that pollution from Boulder down to Colorado Springs,
Mhm.
especially on a busy day. But this was like at 6 a.m. in the morning, or about 6:30. Sun was coming up. There wasn't a lot of smog. I could see 90% of it. It was amazing, truly majestic, right?
Mhm.
I shouldn't have been able to see. I should have only been able to see the top tips of it.
Well,
according to the
according to you haven't shown
Okay.
your.
So now I can't do math, is what you're
No,
suggesting.
not at all. I'm just saying you're not demonstrating it for us right now. You'd
Of
have to show your altitude, your observer height, the distance between where you're standing and Pikes Peak, the height of Pikes Peak, all of that. And I'm just saying, I have to take your word for it right now, unfortunately.
Of course, brother. Let me put this on screen real quick. This is something we can just at least talk about together. I'm trying to put the file into the studio, and it's
Okay.
giving me issues. I don't know why it's giving me issues. Let's try this. I'm gonna have to put it as an overlay because it's not letting me share the file, so that I can put it in a third window for us to look at. So it's gonna be over our faces, though. So this was taken recently, I think a year and a half ago, from Wales to Italy. They know what these mountain ranges are, and they know the distance between them. So this is above the horizon, 49 miles, according to globe math, 49 miles of missing curvature that should be blocking the view of those mountains in Italy, and over 700 miles in distance between the two mountain ranges. So this is an observation. You can do with it what you will.
Yeah, I'd like to respond in two ways, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The first one is, I think flat earthers are a little bit unfair in these discussions because flat earthers state that pictures and videos all the time are doctored, edited, and CGI. It's probably the number one argument of a flat earther.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to say, I don't think a flat earther would see this picture, and because it's showing them what they want to hear, would ever even consider that this might be doctored, edited, or CGI. So that's problem number one, is I don't think they're being fair in that regard. And so I could say right now, it's possible that this is.
You're talking to me,
edited.
and you're assuming to me that I didn't look up Uridfa mountain range in Wales and then look up Mont Blanc mountain range in Italy and do the math. I made this image.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. I didn't know you made it. That's great.
And I just used the biggest, most visible mountain range in Italy. But if you look to the far left, that's even further away. This little white peak sticking up over the distant land further away.
Sure.
I don't even know what mountain range that was, so I couldn't calculate that. So the point is, I'm not sure who you've normally encountered, but I do try to fact check my work, and I do try to be diligent before I make a claim. So when I make a claim that the Father says that he made a structure that encloses us, I try to fact check it through the rest of Scripture. Does that line up with eschatology? Does that line up with all the other references of the heaven above? And I found consistency there, that there is a firmament that encloses us.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to say one more thing about that picture.
Okay.
A friend of mine who's watching right now, who knows more than I do about this kind of stuff, he said that those are actually clouds, and that this has been debunked. So I just want to throw that out there as a possibility, since I've never heard of this.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I live amongst mountain ranges that we can see at great distances, and I can tell you can see that, especially with a picture that clear and a day that clear, you can see the difference between clouds and a mountain peak. So this is why they have been able to confirm that's a mountain peak in Italy. So why would your friend, who clearly doesn't like the idea of a firmament enclosed reality, why would he immediately assume that must be clouds?
I don't think he's assuming it must be clouds. I think he's looked into it. And I wouldn't say that we're against a firmament in terms of a dome covering the earth. I think that some people are just a little bit, they're looking for hard evidence, you know?
Okay.
Like, for example, Sean, you know how many flat earthers have asked me, have you ever seen the curve? Have you ever seen the curve? Have you ever seen the curve? it's like, dude, have you ever seen the firmament? Have you ever seen the firmament? Have you ever seen the firmament? Like, let's get past these arguments. Let's get to some like.
Technically, yes. I mean, technically, yes. We've all seen it because it's where the sun, moon, and stars were placed in the heaven. They're
Well, I know,
literally
but
placed there.
no one's ever seen.
So
a
you're
God
asking though, you want to
stone.
see the knock physical structure, but I'm telling you, the Father tells us He put His sun, moon, and stars, and they're upheld by the structure above us and have been forever. So in that way, if I believe His descriptions and the definitions of the words He used, I am looking at the firmament when I look at the sun, moon, and stars,
Yeah,
because it's holding them up in the air above us.
it's going to take more than that, unfortunately, to convince the masses that something physical and hard exists when you
Yeah.
can't show them something physical and hard exists. That's the issue.
Okay. Do you think it would take approximately 80 years of indoctrination, film, music, TV, and music? Do you think that would help people believe in a firmament if we had an entire nation that grew up for 80 years worth of all movies, all music, all government science claims that we lived under a firmament and that it was a hard structure that upheld the sun, moon, and stars? Do you think people would then start to believe it?
I can only speak for myself. I've been watching movies and reading books since I was a child of aliens, and I don't believe in them. And the reason I don't believe in them is because I've never seen evidence of them.
Okay. Well,
so Hollywood
so the
has
government
not-
itself,
Huh?
the government itself has admitted, supposedly admitted, right? They've disclosed recently that there are other life forms that have visited this earth
Mhm.
and that they have tracked their ships. This is what they're claiming. This is what our government is claiming, disclosing. This is not conspiracy.
Just now, for the first time.
2 years ago.
Yeah, what I'm saying is my entire life,
But the question is, will you believe them?
I've just been inundated with aliens in books and movies and TV shows in Hollywood, and I'm still no closer to believing in aliens. And even with the government recently saying that there's aliens, I'm still not going to believe because I just want to see evidence. Them just saying it is not evidence.
But brother, they've just been saying we live in a heliocentric model without evidence.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. So what I'm saying is that I have evidence that we live on a sphere. And the evidence is the same evidence that is used every single day, thousands of times in courtrooms to prove or disprove cases.
That's interesting.
And the evidence is photos, videos, and eyewitness testimony.
All right. Well, let's talk about the quote unquote photos.
I would love to. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about with this issue.
Can you bring up a true photo, not a doctored image, not a composition?
Yep.
Can you bring up a true photo from the ISS? A photo that you can verify that's an actual photo and hasn't been doctored. Because otherwise you're just extending a ton of faith to people who are telling you a different origin story of your life, who reject the creator of the Bible that you believe in, and a different reality in which you live and were created in. You're believing their word when they send you a out of shape astronaut on the ISS floating up there with a supposed curvature of the earth in the backdrop out the window.
Okay, great. So here's my question for you. What do you do? Because this is going to be important for what I show you. What do you do, like the picture you showed of the mountains? What do you do when you get a picture to determine if it's real or fake, edited or unedited?
There's people that have been to those mountain ranges, people that have testified that they live in that area.
Great.
So I looked at where the source came from. I saw that the testimonies of people that have said they've been there. And I see a similar thing in my part of the earth where I live. Do you know there's a mountain range I can go to and I can see multiple different mountain ranges over 200 miles away?
That's great.
Okay.
So
and all of that defies the heliocentric model's math.
Yeah, this is important because you just said you use eyewitness testimony to help verify if a photo is real. So I'm going to do the same.
And part of that eyewitness testimony, I hope you heard this part, Will, is me. I personally can replicate that type of experiment by going to a mountain range where I live and see things that should be hidden by the curvature, but they're not. I can still see them.
Yeah, we'd have to. I mean, if you're going to put an example together, which is great, I love it. We're going to have to again, verify your claims, your altitude, your height, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I do have a real photo, unedited, of Earth.
So I want you to verify the height, the altitude, and all the claims of where this photo was taken.
Well, I'm not trying to prove that there's so much curve. I'm just trying to prove the shape. That's it.
But all of it is dependent upon you've given trust to the people who claim this is a real photo. But yeah, I'll be glad to look at it.
So do you with every photo you've ever used.
I just told you what I just told you my process, and it does not do that. You have to maybe listen again.
Hold on, Sean, how do you know the photo you showed, because you haven't been to Italy, how do you know that photo wasn't edited at all? What is your process for determining if it's real or fake? That's what I want to know.
I just told you. I said the people who put the photograph up, there's other eyewitness testimony of people who live in that area saying, yes, this is a real photo.
Perfect.
I'm not done, brother.
Okay.
I then can go in a similar test to where I live in my part of the earth, and also see mountain peaks way beyond the math of a globe that I should not be able to see. And the sun is not setting behind them. There's no refraction of magnification. This is on the middle of a day. So I can also do the same type of test. No, it's not 700 miles. It's more like 250. But I can also do the same type of test and see way too far beyond the math.
But that doesn't prove your photo is real. The only thing that you've given as evidence that your photo of Italy is real is eyewitness testimony, right?
So when I take a photo of what I'm talking about from my place, will you believe that testimony? Because you can go test it yourself. I cannot go up to the ISS and test what they claim are real photos.
Correct.
Neither can you.
Correct.
You have to take their word for it.
That's right.
Okay.
So this is very important, by the way, because we are getting to, I think, the reality and the nature of how a flat earther thinks, which is if they don't
I'll let that slide.
Well, hold on. This is important. Here's how
you apply the same logic to the resurrection, brother.
I don't think so. But
yeah, you do.
Let's talk about photos for a second. And then I don't run away from anything. If you guys make up your mind ahead of time that if a photo is of something you don't like, you're automatically going to believe it's fake without evidence. Am I wrong?
False.
Okay, cool. So if I show
you're
you
assuming
photo,
I have no critical thinking skills.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you're saying this because I'm going to show you a photo right now, and I don't want you to tell me that it's fake because it disagrees with you. I want you to give me evidence that it's fake. Fair?
It depends on what it is. I may not be able to. I mean, in this moment, here and the now, I may not be able to provide you evidence. But let's see what it is.
Okay, cool. So it's actually really famous. It's the blue marble, and it's taken by Apollo 11.
You can't be serious, though, right?
Oh, I'm dead serious.
I thought you said you looked into this.
Oh, I looked into it a lot.
You can't be serious, brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was taken in 1972. Wow. 1972.
Right, okay. Give me a second.
Okay. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm excited, but I'm a little disappointed, I'll be honest with you. Okay.
Okay.
Let's look at some I'm going to put this on screen for us.
Can't wait.
So let's look at the blue marble and all of its glory and all of its multiple glories. So this is the blue marble comparison throughout the years.
Okay, so I'm only talking about the 1972 blue marble, by the way.
Bro, the same agency that put out the blue marble in 72 continues to put out different sizes and shapes of continents of blue marble throughout the years.
Okay, so hold on a second. I feel like you're not being fair to me. I'm bringing up one specific picture, which was actually Apollo 17, and it's the 1972 blue marble image. That's the photo I'm submitting as evidence that we live on a globe. So I don't want to talk about the composite image that they released in 2002 because I know all about that as well. That is not a single photo, but the 1972 one is.
How do you know it's a photo?
The same way you know that something is a photo. You looked at it and eyewitness testimony. The two reasons you just gave.
Okay, I hear you. And I'm not discounting. I didn't know. Actually, you're applying one reason. I gave two, one of which was my own personal observation and testing.
But your observation doesn't show that a photo doesn't have an edit on it. That's different. So if we don't have a
Okay, so
standard to show,
can you go up and validate the claim that it's a real photo by going to midway between the Earth and the Moon and take a photo?
no.
Okay, so then you extend trust to the men who claim that's a real photo.
Yes, and you do the same.
Okay, I just told you I do the same, but I
Okay,
said there's
great.
an extra layer of validation because I can test what they're claiming in that photo.
Okay, so and
On
by the
the
way,
Earth, in my own land, in my own region, in my part of the Earth,
okay,
I
so
can test.
Sean, I have a quick question for you. Do you
Okay.
believe that the Titanic sank?
Where are you going with
It's
this?
super important. I promise it's totally relevant.
I don't know. Sure.
Okay, great. So have you seen pictures of the sunken Titanic at the bottom of the ocean?
I haven't looked into that particular topic, so asking me one way
What?
or the other is gonna
I
you
think
know,
everyone in America has seen a picture of the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean,
because I'm
including
not gonna say
recently.
yes because I'm not going off of the movie. That's the first time I ever heard of the Titanic was from the movie in the 90s, and
Okay.
they showed images of it at the bottom of the ocean in the movie, and so I that could be my only memories, so that's skewed. I haven't
Yeah.
looked into that myself, right?
Cool.
So all I'm trying to say is everything that NASA claims, the same agency. So here, if I told you that axe heads do not float well, it's against science. But yet I
Okay.
had the testimony of my Heavenly Father through his prophets that said that one did at one point.
Sure. We both believe in miracles.
Okay.
But
But
again,
we
this
have to extend faith to it. You have to believe it. I'm saying you're extending the same faith to everything that an agency who, in every other words that come out of their mouth, disagrees with your faith.
yeah, but hold on for a second. I don't want to get off topic.
I'm not off topic. We're talking about the shape of the earth and validating claims
Totally.
against the biblical description of the shape of the earth.
If we're to take your position that if we can't get somewhere, aka the bottom of the ocean, to take a picture of ourselves of the Titanic, we have to question every photo, and there's thousands of them, probably millions of them. I'm not
talking about
willing
the
to do
Titanic,
that. I'm not willing to
brother.
do that.
Brother, I'm not talking about the Titanic.
I know, but it's relevant because you're trying to argue if I
It's
can't
not
go to
relevant because I
space.
haven't studied that. You could be right. I don't know. There could be conspiracies about that. I haven't studied that. That's not my topic. The topic that I have studied, that you said you studied and wanted to talk about rebuttals for,
Great.
that's what I thought we were going to talk about.
All
And
good.
all I'm saying is the validation of a person's claim,
Mhm.
say a person that is a part of a government agency, whom also claims in the same breath, you were not created by the Almighty, specifically Yahweh of the Old Testament.
Mhm.
You were not created by them. You were a cosmological accident from a big bang.
Yeah, I deny all that. So we
Okay,
don't have
but
to talk
here's
about
what I'm
that.
saying though. The very premise for which they bring in the heliocentric philosophy, and that's exactly what it is, by the way, is built upon the foundation of a different God and a different origin of life and creation. So why would you give them the benefit of the doubts when your God and your prophets attest to a physical firmament that encloses the earth and supports the sun, moon, and stars? But here comes an agency that disagrees with your theology and your creation story and says, actually, no, none of that's real. It's just open. And there's, instead of
Bro,
planetest, instead of the lights in the sky, there's planets in the sky at certain distances. The sun is not the same size as the moon, as the scriptures talk about it, but instead it's, you can fit 1.3 million earths inside of the moon, and all, like, everything they preach is opposite to the scriptures. Why do you give them validation for their claims?
Sean, a broken clock is right twice a day because they're wrong about who knows what, and I don't really care. That doesn't mean they're wrong about the shape of the earth.
Have you ever heard of panspermia?
A long time ago, yeah, it's ridiculous.
You know they're still preaching it at NASA, though.
I did not know that, and if they are, they're wrong. But they're not wrong about the shape of the earth, and I want to make sure that we don't get off of this because I can show you a real photo of Earth, and I don't think you can show that it's fake. So what do we do with that?
I don't think that you can show that it's legit. You take the claims of someone that it's legit.
So
You're
okay.
extending trust. That's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Okay, cool. So that means, Sean, that your picture from Wales in Italy is the same problem.
No, it's not. People can go up to that mountain and take another picture. No one, you cannot go halfway to the moon and take another picture. They will not let you, Will.
Okay, Sean, people can go take this picture from 1972. They can take it as well. So
No, they
you're still
can't.
not, I can't and you can't, but
Before we go any further, let's
Yeah.
just establish this as a baseline.
Okay.
You and I and everyone else except state-funded approved astronauts,
Mhm.
you and I cannot go halfway to the moon and take a picture like they did 1972, like you claim they did 1972.
Who cares? It doesn't matter.
It does matter. That's
No,
the
it does not.
entire point of validating the claim.
Okay.
You have to extend trust to men who disagree with your God and your whole Bible
No,
in
I
order
don't.
to believe this picture.
Hey,
You
Sean.
have to.
Sean, the men, I'm going to go to Apollo 8 now. The men who took pictures of Earth on Apollo 8 were Christians. And I'm going to tell you right now that, Sean, court cases, we decide court cases without being able to replicate the crime. You can't murder someone twice. And so we can come to truth, and God expects us to come to truth even if we can't do something ourselves. So I think you're making an invalid argument. Men can do this. You and I can't, but other men can. And again, you and I can't go down to see the Titanic and take pictures of it, but people do. And I'm not going to call them liars. And I'm not going to say that they're being paid to lie and that their pictures are fake just because I don't like it. So I don't think this is a really good argument that you're making.
So now you're going back to the idea that men who claim to be Christians could never lie.
Nope, never said that.
Well, that's essentially what you're pulling. That's your foundation, is what you're pulling. This is exactly the argument that Justin Peters recently made.
No. What I'm going to say is that if you send me a picture of your vacation, I'm not going to tell you that you edit it because I wasn't there with you on your vacation. It's a bad argument. If you want to show that a picture is edited, you have to give evidence that it's edited. You can't just say,
if you want to show
I don't like
that
it,
you have that the 72 picture is a real photo and not a doctored image, you have to give evidence.
Great.
Cool. Then we're in the same boat. I'll wait for your evidence. And then you can wait for mine to debunk it.
Okay. Okay, great. So is like for Sean, are you real? How do I know you're real and that you're not a deep fake AI that I'm talking to?
You don't know that.
See, that's the issue, is that I can tell you right now, you guys are never going to succeed if you don't want to use arguments and you just want to question everything.
For one, you're making a lot of assumptions that is not representative of you guys. I'm not a you guys.
That's fair.
I'm someone that strives to make valid and stable, substantiated arguments.
Okay.
So this is why I said, before we started the show tonight, I said, well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to talk about science or the Bible or a mix of both? And we're kind of blended into both. And
I love it. I love it.
I just would love to know how much you believe the Bible.
Well, I just real quick, and we can move on from the pictures. I think it's clear that you guys don't have a method of determining whether a picture is real or not. You throw it away. You throw it away if you don't like it, and if you do like it, you say it's real.
That's not true. We do have a method. People have done Photoshop analysis on photos presented by NASA to show that some of them are doctored, and they've videotaped it. They've shown it.
Perfect.
It's been filmed. It's been documented.
Great.
So let me ask you this.
I agree with you on that, but not the 1972 photo.
In the same way that the astronauts their videos have shown them with harnesses and wires when they're supposed to be in space. If you find them lying one time, why do you extend them credit that they're telling the truth the rest of the time?
Hey, Sean, they've never been shown to be on harnesses and wires. That's a myth.
I see that you are very unstudied in this topic. So
no, I'm very studied. They've never been shown to be on harnesses and wires. There's
so many videos that have been produced to show this and broken down. It just shows me that, respectfully, you are very unstudied on this.
Well, hold on a second.
Tonight, I didn't have a plethora of videos to show because I wanted to be more conversational. I don't have a plethora of videos to pull up and make us sit and watch through videos and stuff. But the people that you talked to previously, Jaron and Austin, they have a ton of them. They've broken them down. These are directly from NASA. Yeah. These are not photos doctored. These are photos pulled from the NASA website. Yeah,
I know, but Sean, they're terrible. So the best example that they've shown is a guy who goes like this with his hand. And they're like, oh, he grabbed a wire. Well, unfortunately, he didn't. If you rewatch it closely and you zoom in and you go frame by frame, his pinky got caught in the pocket of the guy doing a flip next to him, which, by the way, the videos of weightlessness on the ISS, you guys can't refute that. Did you know that?
That's a whole nother topic that's been multiple times been addressed. As far
No,
as
it hasn't.
well, okay, that's your claim tonight. I say there's a lot of other people that have refuted your claim multiple times. That particular argument, I don't have a bunch of video evidence to refute your claim tonight, but other people have. But I understand that's your claim tonight. Are you familiar with? Let me see if I can find this guy. Are you familiar with Robert Simmons?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've heard of the guy, right?
Of course. I bet I know more about him than most flat earthers.
Okay, so you know that he has admitted that in 2002 the blue marble image was photoshopped because it has to be.
Hey, Sean, this is awesome. You're dead wrong.
Okay.
And I would love for you to admit this once I show you the truth right now.
You're welcome to present your case.
Okay, cool. What I'm going to say is accurate. I've spent hours researching this. He said the 2002 blue marble was photoshopped.
I just said that.
You just said 1972.
No, I didn't. I said that. Go back and listen. I said the 2002 blue marble Photoshop. Robert Simmons declared it's Photoshop because it has to be. They take strips of data and they compile them in an image to make it a coherent image.
Correct.
Let me ask you. Okay, so we agree on that premise. So let me ask you a logical question.
Great. Love it.
Why did they have to do a composition of images put together in a file in 2002 instead of just taking a photo with high 4K cameras, with high digital, great and telezoom cameras that they could just take up with them and take a photo of the Earth on one of their missions or on any satellite that's been thrown up into space that supposedly brings back digital images already? Why can't they just send us there's satellites that are supposedly 1 million miles in orbit around the Earth, right?
Yeah, but we have to go back to 2002.
Even back then.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So
no.
why can they have a photo to be able to take in 1972 with the Hasselbein, but yet they can't have a camera that can take something, just put it on the back of the Mars rover on its way in 2001 to Mars or 2009 to Mars and just have it take a photo of the Earth as it leaves?
You're being a little bit unfair. You're asking me why the 2002 image had to be photoshopped, and I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay, I didn't ask you about that. I asked you about a logical question.
I
didn't ask you that question. I said the logical question to you is, why would they have to Photoshop all images in modernity and call them composition images?
False.
They're not photos. That we do not have one real photo in modernity. You claim 72 is the only real photo.
No, I did not. I did not say that.
You just did. That's what you built your premise on.
No. I said
I'll retract that. I'll retract that. Maybe you
Thank
did. You. NASA themselves claims that all their images are compositions of strips of data that they then have to put in color. Not true. So they do not have a true image of the Earth from space that they can say this is an undoctored photo, not an image that's been compiled, but an actual photo from a camera.
Yeah.
If they can do it in 72, why can't they do it now?
Okay, super easy answer. You ready for this? So just to clear the record, they took thousands of pictures of the Earth between Apollo 8 and Apollo 17. Thousands. Okay? After Apollo 17, they never left low Earth orbit, Sean. So in 2002,
we have a rover on Mars, multiple rovers on Mars. Supposedly there's 2 rovers on Mars.
In 2002.
Now.
Okay,
brother.
But hold on. This is important, Sean, because what you are saying some incorrect things. NASA has never said all of our photos are photoshopped. Robert Simmons, who I've actually listened to so many of his interviews.
You're right.
Said he
NASA's never admitted that they photoshopped anything. It took Robert Simmons to say it.
Okay, he worked for NASA. So what I'm saying is Robert Simmons, speaking for NASA, said that the 2002 blue marble, which is one image, was photoshopped. And the reason it was photoshopped was because if you'd have to go all the way back to Apollo 17, they had never left low Earth orbit. So all the data that he had was from really close to the surface of the Earth, which is why he had to put it together.
How long is the International Space Station? Before it was called the ISS. Do you know what it was called?
No.
Okay. Do you know?
I don't care what the name is.
You should.
Why?
You should, because it was supposedly up there since the 70s.
No, it wasn't. It's only 25 years old.
Before it was the ISS.
No. The ISS was built over time, and they started building it about 25 years ago.
If you ever find the pictures of its construction process, I'd love to see it. So the ISS itself, at the altitude it is, supposedly 250 miles above the Earth.
That's like barely above the Earth. It's
Gotcha.
like that.
Well, I know, but they sure do send us a lot of curvature pictures, right? And then they claiming to be traveling at 17,500 miles an hour in orbit around the Earth.
Yes.
Right? To keep their trajectory. So why can't they just pan across? They could just say a picture of the Earth, and I could just take it out of the window and just do the whole thing. All the pictures we ever get is a sliver. And if you start matching up the land, even if they finally show you land, usually it's just clouds. But if they finally show you some sort of land in the backdrop of their picture, and you start to match it up, it doesn't match the dimensions that they claim the Earth is.
I've never seen what you're talking about.
I know, because again,
By the way,
you've admitted that you're studied on the subject, but it's like I said before, and I'm trying to say this to be generous, brother. I'm not trying to be cruel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big topic. It's a lot. There's a lot of things to sift through, if I could put it like that.
For sure. By the way, they do take video of the Earth, high definition video from the ISS. So I don't know why you're acting like they don't.
I specifically said, why can't they just, instead of having the camera, the vantage point of the camera being from inside the ISS, and there's 3 to 4 feet in front of the window, and they take a picture of the window of the ISS with the curvature in the background, why don't they just put the camera lens against the window and go like this and get the entire Earth in view?
You can't.
You can't.
No, they're in low Earth orbit, Sean. They're not as high as
you can get more than they show us, is the whole point of what I'm saying. They never will do that because it's not, I would say, all the evidence points to it's not a real situation. Did you know that 2015, 2016? They said there was a hole in the ISS that he filled with his finger until he could find some sort of substance to put in there and patch it.
Okay.
All right. Do you understand gas pressure?
Sorry, man. Like I've repaired a tire, a hole in my tire with gum before. Does that mean I'm lying? I don't know.
Brother, I'm trying to say the whole reason is that you have, at 250 miles above the Earth, you have a lack of air pressure. This is why they need spacesuits to do spacewalks on the outside of the ISS.
Right.
But yet when an actual hole is in the exterior paneling of the ISS going outside into space, there's no loss of air pressure in the interior cabin, and he just goes, oh wait, how long has that hole been there, and puts his finger in it until they can find some. This was
I've never heard this before, and
again, respectfully, because you're still,
my gut is telling me, Sean, that you're wrong.
Of course it is, because you have already made up your mind, just like you claim of me. You've already predetermined. You've predetermined that the Bible's not telling us a true story. That the modern science agencies are telling you a true story. It's not a straw man.
I never said the Bible's false.
Then explain to me what you think the Bible is describing as creation.
The heavens and the earth that we live in.
Please give some detail. Please explain what you think the Bible describes as the shape of where we live and exist.
It doesn't describe the shape, and I never said it did.
Okay. I do say it does. The definitions of the words do say it does. Early church fathers do say it does. So I guess that's where we'd be at a difference in opinion and interpretation.
What shape does the Bible say the earth is? What shape?
It says it's land that's a circle of earth enclosed by a firmament.
Okay, so you believe that the earth is a circle.
It has pillars of land, pillars of the heaven, which is the firmament. It has cavernous areas called Sheol and Tartarus below it.
Okay, so you do believe that it's a circle.
The land itself is enclosed by a circular firmament, yes. But it's got undulations, it's got rivers, ravine, mountains, it's got topography,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's not forget the enclosed firmament part. Because the point of the scriptures is, like, the end of the story is that God, the Father's coming down to us. Do you believe that statement?
If I'm right, Sean, that the firmament in Genesis is the crust of the earth, then this isn't right, what you're saying.
Respectfully, I'm not saying this to be rude or catty. You've said this many times, so I'm going to have to just say it back to you.
Mhm.
You continuing to ignore and redefine the word firmament as crust of the earth is not a good argument.
Well, okay, I think there's actually some history with the etymology of rakia and the word rock. And so that would actually be evidence of what I'm saying.
You mean like something that's firm, kind of like the firmamenta is what they translated from the Latin,
Like
because it's
the
a
crust,
solid surface.
like the crust of the earth being made out of
Okay,
rock.
that never seen that definition from any scholar. That's highly unique attempt, and it doesn't match the context of where it says the heavens is above the earth. So I say you would have a lot of work to do in trying to prove that as an exegesis. Respectfully, I would say that's a very, very poor argument when trying to redefine the firmament. The context of the rest of the Bible would disagree with you, brother.
The
Let me ask
Garden
you
of
just a real
Eden
quick question.
would have been above the crust. So it would have been above the firmament.
So the scriptures say that Yahweh is in the heaven of heavens. What do you think that means?
I think it means outside the universe.
It doesn't mean the crust of the crust?
No. So I think you missed me, Sean. The firmament in Genesis switches to firmament of the heavens.
No, it doesn't, brother. It tells you
Yes.
the definition of the firmament in
No,
Genesis
no.
1:8.
No.
Genesis 1:8. Do you want me to put it on the screen for us?
Yes, I do, because I'm right on
Okay.
this one. It starts by calling it the firmament only, then it switches to the firmament of the heavens.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, it gives.
I'm arguing that
it
the
gives
firmament of the
definition for.
heavens is different than the firmament.
Okay, 1 second. Let me go to the KJV because it uses the word firmament instead of just sky. Okay. And let's put this on screen real quick. All right. So this is where it's introduced here as far as the one that's over us.
Mhm.
But what our clue is right here. God called the firmament heaven.
I don't see what you're
You-
looking at yet.
You don't see these words? I'm sorry.
I do
1
not.
second. 1 second. You see it now?
I do.
All right.
So this is important because every use of the word firmament up until from Genesis 1:1 until here does not say firmament of the heavens, plural. We
Okay.
don't get that until verse 14.
Let me ask you a quick question because I know what you're doing, but let me ask you a quick question.
Uh-huh.
You see this very first statement, he created the heaven and the earth.
Yep.
What is this?
I believe that's the universe outside the earth.
Of course. Okay. All right. So do you think that that's heaven, the word heaven used here, which is the same word, shomayim, in the Hebrew? You think it's the same word used here?
You know what? We'd have to check if that's plural in Genesis 1:1.
It is, because he built 6 firmaments on day 1. He built the last 7th firmament on day 2.
And
I'm
is
just
verse
asking very simply,
8
do you think that this word heaven in Genesis 1:1 is the same word heaven in Genesis 1:8?
I think it's possible that there's a difference between singular and plural, but I don't know Hebrew.
Okay. So he told us that the firmament which he just described upholds waters and divided things is called the heaven.
Yeah, which I think is the crust of the earth.
I hear you. I hear you. He then goes on to say, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven. And he puts lights above us. Now, can we agree we know where the sun, moon, and stars are in relation to us? They're above us.
And the planets. I know you guys don't like planets, but we can't forget about those. I've actually seen those with my own eyes.
Can we just stick with the sun, moon, and stars?
Sure.
For the text in front of us.
Sure.
Okay. You agree that they're above us?
Yes.
Okay. And they're above us where? In the firmament of the heaven.
In the firmament of the heavens, which is different than the firmament above, in the verses above.
There's nothing in any of these verses that would give you that license for that type of interpretation.
There actually would be, which is the qualifier. So when Moses is writing, he's not going to make a qualifier if he's talking about the same thing.
I mean, isn't that just an assumption of interpretation? How many times do you see the Hebrew text, especially in the Masoretic, repeating itself and requalifying, speaking about the same thing?
I don't know.
What does he say? I am the mighty one, the Holy One of Israel. Do you think that's talking about the Father and the Son, or just the Father with 2 different descriptors?
I have no idea. I'm just saying we have to.
I'm directly addressing your claim, brother. You
I
just
don't think
said
you
the
are.
qualifier. You said that if Moses is writing a qualifier, he wouldn't write a second qualifier talking about the same thing. And I'm directly addressing your claim. We see other Hebrew idioms and ways of writing where they add extra information with another descriptor talking about the same thing in Scripture.
I'd have to see an example of that.
I just tried to give you one, but so basically, this is all I'm saying. This has a definition to it. The word heaven is the name that was given to this structure, the firmament.
Yes. Great.
Yes. And it's above us.
No, that's where you and I disagree. I
Because
believe
this word denotes the earth is below, the heavens above.
I assume so, yes. And I also think that there might be an issue here with the translation. Hopefully you're not King James only.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying this is the same poor argument that you're accusing me of, to say any photo I bring to you, you think I'm immediately be skeptical and discard it and not test it.
No,
And
not
I'm
at
saying
all.
you just said this could be a translation issue.
No, I'm saying let's test this with someone that knows Hebrew, and let's look at the word heaven in verse 1. Is it plural or singular? And then let's look at it in verse 8.
Do you believe all the modern lexicons are incorrect in their understanding of Hebrew?
I don't know. I mean, that's a very broad question. I'm sure there's some mistakes.
That is the claim you would have to make in order to say that this
the
doesn't
New
mean
King
what
James,
it's defined
Sean,
as.
the New King James translates verse 1 different than the King James. So that means one of them is wrong.
Let's go to the New King James.
Cool.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
So I think the heavens there is going to be different than calling the crust of the earth heaven in verse 8, singular.
That's not what he calls it. The word heavens is a plural because it's Elohim. It's a Shomayim, which is an I-am. It's a plural in Hebrew.
So why is it
But whether the
singular
translator, because it's a translator decision, because it's a plural word as its core definition of word.
So you're saying it's plural in verse 8 as well?
No, we have the context of what it describes as the firmament is the heaven that divided the waters from the waters in verses 3 through 7.
Yeah, again, Sean, we disagree. This is an interpretative issue here. I believe it's referring to the crust of the earth.
I know, but I'm just telling you that no lexicons, no concordances, nobody, the ancient rabbi, none of them ever thought the firmament referred to anything to do with the earth below.
Okay, so that's
so you'll have to research this out when you have.
That's an appeal to authority, no?
It's an appeal to the definition of the word, man.
No,
I don't know how to make this more clear. Let me just ask you a philosophical question real quick, because I think we're getting off into the weeds of, because I don't know where to go else when I show you a definition and you're like, I don't agree with that. It's probably a translation issue. So
no, I'm saying I'm talking about singular and plural, not the definition.
Mm-hmm. It's the same word in singular and plural, just like Aranas, both singular and plural word in the Greek and the New Testament. What would be the scary thoughts, or what would be, so do you have an aversion or a fear of any kind that it's possible that the creation where we live could be enclosed with a large structure, and that the God of all creation himself lives at the top of that structure above us?
No fear whatsoever. I just want to see evidence.
Okay. So have you ever done the math for the New Jerusalem that's described?
Never.
Okay. So it wouldn't fit on a ball earth, just to let you know.
Okay, cool. By the way, I don't even fear aliens. I just want evidence that they're real.
Okay.
And I hate when.
What is your evidence for God being real?
The impossibility to the contrary.
The impossibility to the contrary.
Absolutely. If there is no God, there is nothing. Something cannot come from nothing. Therefore, something has always existed. That is God.
Do you believe Hebrews 1:1 that says God spoke through his prophets in many portions, in many ways?
Yeah, of course.
Do you believe that's an accurate theological statement of the Old Testament?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you think wrote Genesis?
Moses.
Okay. So you lean towards the rabbinic view?
I do.
Okay. You think Moses was a prophet?
Yeah, of course.
You think Moses gave inaccurate information about the creation?
No.
Okay. Okay. Because the word in Genesis 7:11 for the windows is actually a word that relates back to a sluice.
Huh?
Which is...
Oh.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
So the word in Genesis 7:11 during the flood, it says the windows of the firmament opened and the water poured down in. That word in Hebrew relates back to a term for a sluice, the word for window. a sluice like in a dam when they pull a lock out of a dam and let water through.
That's cool.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with the crust of the earth.
Sure.
Has nothing the springs of the deep are a separate issue. They were closed, just like the firmament's windows were closed. So just like in the context of Genesis 1, verses 3 through 7, says the firmament divided waters above the firmament from waters below the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in the flood story, the waters above the firmament are let down in below the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
So the context of the descriptor matches. Nothing to do with the crust of the earth.
Okay. Again, there's figures of speech in the Bible, right?
Again, this is why I said, do you believe that, do you hold to the doctrine of accommodation?
Well, are there figures of speech in the Bible or not?
Of course, brother, but we're speaking specifically on the words of the Almighty through his prophets. Is it accurate information that we can trust?
Well, hold on. You're interrupting me, man. If there are figures of speech in the Bible, I'm going to say that the term "the windows of heaven opened" could be, I'm not saying it is, it could be a figure of speech for rain. That's it. That's fine.
After it says the windows of heaven were opened, then it rained for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So water pours down into the atmosphere. Moisture is in the atmosphere, which creates clouds, drops rain.
I don't know if there's any science of what you're saying of massive amounts of water coming from above a firmament and then just magically turning into clouds before they hit the surface of the earth. That doesn't sound scientific to me.
Is there any science to a floating egg's head or a donkey speaking?
No.
Okay.
That's
so then
cool.
do we just believe the words of the prophet who tells us this is the story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so we both agree that it rained. What we're disagreeing on is how the rain came.
Is there science to the resurrection of Christ?
I would say no.
Okay. But we believe it. We emphatically believe it. We preach it till death.
Definitely. But why? It's because of eyewitness testimony. Flat earthers throw out eyewitness testimony faster than this. Every time.
Is Yahweh speaking through his prophet, the one who made all things? Is he an eyewitness testimony?
Is who the eyewitness testimony?
The one who created things.
Of course.
So when he tells his prophets what he made and describes it, is that a valid testimony to be trusted?
Well, you're believing that the prophet actually heard from God.
You believe it too, right? You believe Moses was a prophet of God. Okay.
I don't
is that reliable testimony or not?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I don't throw away eyewitness testimony. Flat earthers do it daily.
Again, I'm going to ignore the ad homs. I'm going to ignore the
It's not an ad hom.
I'm trying to ask logical questions about the Bible.
Every time somebody goes into the ISS,
we're
flat earthers say they're lying. Every time someone goes to space, they say they're lying.
If someone claims something, just like I claim the abortion mills are lying, yes, it's evil.
Well, we have evidence. We have like hidden cameras.
No, I'm saying what they promote, that it's okay and justified to end a pregnancy. I think that is evil, and it's a lie. The entire premise of what they promote, and they're funded by the government to promote a lie. It's evil and wickedness. Right?
And we can show an ultrasound and show them why they're wrong.
So in the same way, if I see somebody else that is promoting a lie, even if let's just put it like this, brother. Let's say, no, that's silly. That's silly.
It's just,
I'm just saying, brother, if you think that the words of the prophets are true and reliable testimony from the Almighty, you got a problem. You got a serious theological problem.
Why?
With believing in a heliocentric model. Because the Bible doesn't describe that. Let me ask you a quick question again, because you were trying to hit one of your points and my question got lost earlier. Do you believe that the Father is going to bring his house and tabernacle on the earth at the end of the story?
Yes.
Okay. And you think that that's coming from some other place in space?
No, I believe it's coming from outside of the universe. And
which was another place in the quote unquote galaxy, more space, right?
No. Outside of the universe is not more space. Absolutely not.
There's another fabric of reality that's untold that you think exists?
Of course. It's where God's domain.
Because the Bible tells us what heaven is, where it is, and what it's like.
I don't know about that.
Literally with thousands and thousands of words in the prophets. Christ in his resurrected, glorified body goes to heaven and exists just fine.
Yeah, so I believe he went outside of our universe, and I believe there will be a new heaven and a new earth.
Okay. By the way, just in case you have a chance to check that out in Revelation 21, that word in the Greek for new is not the word neos, it's the word kainos. So it's a very specific word that means a refashioned heaven and earth.
I like that.
It doesn't mean new as in brand new.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank
It
you.
means it takes what existed and innovates it. So yeah, I just want to encourage you, brother. I know we disagree on this. It seems you've made this your mission. It seems you've made this like something that you're pretty adamant about.
I am.
And it seems like you've been studying some of the information, but there's a lot more. I would suggest you keep going, because there's a lot more that you're revealing to me tonight that you haven't seen or been observed or witnessed or watched yet.
Oh yeah, we all have so much to learn, for sure.
Yeah. But
But I
specifically
will-
about the arguments you're making, though, is what I'm getting at.
I would suggest that you and your audience look into the videos from the ISS of the weightlessness, because I don't think you guys can refute those. Usually people appeal to a zero-G plane, but those only give you seconds of weightlessness, not minutes. And we've got minutes of weightlessness on the ISS videos.
You can go to dozens of YouTube videos and see people in their garage creating weightlessness with frequency.
I've never seen it.
Just check it out. Remember
for
I told you I
minutes?
was whenever I told you I was a nerd and I love science and physics?
Yeah.
Yeah. I watch those videos at night before I go to bed.
If they could be weightless and go through their house, go through all the different rooms, go up to the upstairs and down to the basement, floating the entire time, you got me.
Yeah, that's not what
Because that's what they do on the ISS.
Yeah, no, that's what you're told they do, and that's what you think that they might do, but I promise you, if you actually watch their full videos.
I do. I've actually watched like 2 hours of the videos before, just to try to research this topic.
Yeah. And you recognized all the cuts in the camera angles?
Exactly. There's no cuts.
There's a ton of cuts.
No, I did.
We're definitely going to disagree on that.
I
brother,
did.
That's
okay. So yes, there's cuts, but I'm telling you.
Okay, then there's cuts. It's not a cut
of 30 minutes without cuts.
Sure.
And that I don't believe can be done anywhere other than the ISS. And I'm open for you guys giving evidence, but again, just don't make baseless claims.
Not a baseless claim when I see a person's belt loops pulling up on the sides of them.
Okay.
It's not a baseless claim.
Well, just so you know, weightlessness affects clothes differently because there's less gravity. So of course,
it affects clothes in the very specific spots where a harness would be.
Of course it affects clothes.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Absolutely.
Interesting. All right. Well, so have you heard of the Dutch astronaut that claims we've never been to space? No one's ever been to space?
No.
Okay, you should look him up.
That means he hasn't been to space, or if he has, he's lying.
Oh, so now his testimony is not credible, huh?
If he's been to space and he said there is no space, then he's lying. That's my argument, and that's a fact. If he hasn't been to space and he says we haven't been to space, I want to know his evidence, because his evidence is not based on eyewitness testimony.
Respectfully, brother, none of your claims and none of the claims of these people and from these agencies that push a different version of creation and a different version of eschatology and a different version of salvation, none of them can match with the Bible.
Yeah, I have no issues reconciling a sphere with the Bible, personally.
I know. I'm hearing you.
By the way, my buddy just told me that a Dutch astronaut never said that. So I
may have the country wrong, but it was for the European Space Agency. Yeah, your fact checker will have to keep checking though. There's literally videos.
Your claims, you'd have to provide evidence.
I know. Again, like I said, there's so many tangents. I didn't prepare clips.
Yeah, it's all right.
I didn't think this was going to be an actual debate. I just thought it was a general conversation.
I think we had a good general conversation.
So yeah.
My buddy, by the way, thinks that you're talking about a Czech astronaut, and he was telling a joke. So just for if you guys want to look it up.
Joke. Okay.
No. It's been shown that it was a joke.
Yeah. The same type of joke as when they found out that they tested the moon rocks and they realized it was petrified wood.
I've never heard of that.
Tell your buddy to fact check that. Of course, he's going to just go to Google and he's going to see whatever pops up first.
No, this guy is more researched in this than anybody I know.
Yeah. Does he research the definition of the word firmament?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
You should tell him to dig into that and see if he wants to be intellectually honest and research the definitions of words and their contextual application in the rest of the Bible. Where do you think Jesus went when he ascended in Acts 1?
I believe he went outside the universe.
So at that particular day, in Jerusalem, Jesus ascended. Do you think he ascended through the atmosphere up and then
Yes.
at a certain altitude decided to go into a different direction to go to his point of destination?
No, up.
So you think it just coincidentally, the immediate up above him was exactly where he needed to go in the 360ness of space?
No matter where he was on Earth, going up would have gotten him to his destination.
So, okay. So then you got to help me understand your ideas on what you think this reality of heaven is.
By the way, sorry, real quick. Hector's Search for Truth just said, have your buddy debate Austin. I offered that to Austin, including paying all of his expenses, and he would not do it. Sorry.
Austin debates people all the time, but I don't know who
he
knows?
Won't debate my buddy. I'll tell you that.
Is your buddy a good faith?
Oh, definitely.
He's honest.
He's a believer. Yeah. He goes by the name MC Tune on YouTube.
Bro. Okay. Yeah, we all know who McToon is.
He's very sharp.
Yeah. Okay.
He's actually going to be debating one of your listeners tonight at my church on Saturday in 2 days.
So this makes much more sense. Okay. No aspersions on your relationship with him, but I've seen McToon, and you think that's good faith. You think that's honest, intellectually honest.
I will tell you
that's between you and God.
I will tell you, flat earthers tell me all the time that he lies, but they've never shown one lie. So I'm still waiting for that first lie.
I did not realize that that was your friend. That is hilarious.
Shouldn't he be my friend, Sean? Aren't we all?
We should all be friends with people that we disagree with. I'm just saying. Well, I've seen him in action, brother, and he is. I'll leave it. It's fine. Okay. Yeah.
His stuff, by the way, McToon's stuff on celestial navigation is top notch. Like, I think the best in the world.
All of it's assumption that he puts faith in other people's claims.
Well,
is McToon a Christian? He believes the Bible's the inspired word of God?
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. So then he would have to research the definitions of the word firmaments.
By the way, it's MC Tune.
Right.
And again, I want to reemphasize this. We still don't know what baptizo means in Greek. So we're going to be researching words forever.
With this logic that you're applying right now, we can't trust the Bible.
No, we definitely can. We can trust, Sean, what matters, which is that God created the heavens and the earth. And we can still try to research.
You don't think it matters? You don't think it matters when he tells us where he and his son come from to the earth to rule and reign over all the nations?
Of course it matters.
Well, then it matters because the world is telling you they don't exist. They're not coming back. There is no firmaments. That the only salvation is that we have to go colonate Mars, and we're gonna, unless we die a supernova heat death in 200,000 years from the sun. We have to find ways out of this solar system, out of this creation that you think is inspired and created by God for man. I'm just trying to say the philosophy of the heliocentric model and everything that's underneath it and everything it concludes disagrees with your faith in the scriptures of God.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. I'm just putting the claim out there. You can test it over time.
Sure.
And just know
I'm willing to say, Sean, that the world is wrong about 99% of what they say, but I do think they're right on one simple thing, which is that we live on a globe. That's my claim.
That's wild.
A broken clock is right twice a day, man.
So you think that Irenaeus was completely wrong about his understanding of the firmament that encloses us?
Yes. If again, I'm trusting you and I don't think you're wrong, but if what you're saying is right, that he believes there was some sort of a dome that, again, we'd hit if we went up, including Jesus, yeah, I think he's wrong.
Same thing with Church Father John of Damascus in the 6th century, who also talked about it in closing us.
Dude, honestly, I think the Church Fathers were wrong about like most of what they said theologically.
What about Christ when he said the powers of the firmament, the powers of the heaven be shaken at his return? I
don't remember him saying using
Matthew
the
24,
word firmament.
Matthew, well, it's the definition of the word heaven. I just showed it to you multiple times tonight.
So when it says, so if the Bible says that like the birds are flying in the heavens, does that mean they're flying inside the glass?
Again, in the open firmament, which is in verse 20 of Genesis 1, that's where the birds fly. It qualifies it with a descriptor, the open firmament. Everything above the mountains of the earth goes into the realm of heaven. And there's the heaven where the clouds and the birds are versus the heaven that encloses us versus the multiple heavens, which in the sun, moon, and stars are placed. And at the top of that is the Father's throne, which is where Yeshua ascended to minister in the temple. So this is why I'm saying that you've been lied to. I was lied to. And, it's just what it is, man. We've been lied to for 100 years.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I don't think we've been lied to about the shape of the Earth. So
All right, man. All right. Well,
Cool.
I have another meeting coming up in 20 minutes. I got to bounce.
Awesome.
I got to eat some dinner real quick.
Thank you.
You've been awesome, Will. And are you got any debates coming up?
I appreciate it. Yeah, the debate is going to be with MC Toon and Joe.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant you. Like, are you going to debate Matt Slick again anytime soon? Or?
No, I'm busy homeschooling my kids right now. So no debates for a while.
All right, brother. Bless you. Thank you for coming on and being genuine. I hope you didn't take any offense to any.
Not at all.
You felt it got heated.
Loved it.
I think you did great, and I'd love to have you back on in the future.
For sure, man. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.